Amaka grew up in the sprawling city of Lagos, where everything about her life was a little brighter, bigger, and more luxurious than most. The only daughter of Chief Ozoemena, a prominent businessman, Amaka was adored and pampered beyond measure. With 2 older brothers, she was the apple of her father's eye, showered with the best gifts, trips, and luxuries money could buy. In the Ozoemena household, there was a full staff, cleaners, drivers, and 2 dedicated cooks. Amaka never had to lift a finger, or her meals were served to her 3 times a day, and she barely set foot in the kitchen. The smell of food was something she associated with being served rather than with the effort of preparing it. Her world revolved around shopping, socializing, and trying out the latest fashions. Whenever her mother suggested she learn to cook or manage household chores, Amaka would roll her eyes and say, "Why bother, Mom? I'm a modern woman. I'll always have help." Her mother would shake her head, knowing that eventually the time would come for Amaka to learn that life wasn't always so simple. One sunny Saturday afternoon, Chief Ozoemena called Amaka and her mother down to the sitting room where a distinguished guest was waiting. Amaka, dressed in her designer dress and clutching her latest smartphone, was curious but unconcerned, assuming it was another business partner of her father's. To her surprise, Chief Ozoemena introduced the man as Chief Okeke, a longtime friend and fellow business tycoon. Chief Okeke wasn't alone. Beside him stood a young man, tall, sharply dressed, and exceptionally handsome. Amaka couldn't help but feel a spark of interest as she took in his chiseled features and confident smile. Chief Ozoemena smiled warmly, gesturing for Amaka to sit down. "Amaka, this is Chidi, Chief Okeke's only son. Chief Okeke and I have been friends for years, and we thought it was time our families joined in marriage." Amaka's mother raised her brows, her eyes bright with curiosity and anticipation. Amaka, however, was stunned. Marriage? She'd never given it much thought, and now here was a potential husband being introduced to her in her own living room. As the elders spoke, Chidi's eyes met Amaka's, and she felt her heart skip a beat. He was not only handsome but had a refined charm that drew her in. By the time the elders asked for her decision, Amaka found herself agreeing with little hesitation, dazzled by his looks and the potential excitement of starting a life with someone so intriguing. The wedding was a grand celebration, filled with music, laughter, and the blessings of friends and family. Amaka was the center of attention, while her friends and family cheered her on. Little did she know, however, that marriage would bring challenges she was far from prepared for. Life as a newlywed seemed glamorous at first. Amaka and Chidi moved into a beautiful apartment in a high-end neighborhood, where she enjoyed decorating their new home and flaunting her new title as Mrs. Chidi Okeke. For the first few weeks, everything was exciting and new, and Amaka was delighted to have found a husband who continued to be as handsome and captivating as the day they met. One evening, Chidi returned home with a smile, embracing her warmly. "Amaka, my love, I have a request." Amaka looked up at him, curious. "Of course, anything for you." Chidi's eyes lit up. "I'd love a bowl of ofnsala, white soup, just like my mother used to make." Amaka's heart sank slightly. Ofnsala. She had heard of it, of course. It was one of the traditional soups she knew many men loved. But she had no idea how to make it. Still, she didn't want to disappoint him, and besides, how hard could it be? Forcing a bright smile, she replied, "Consider it done. I'll get started right away." As soon as he left to freshen up, Amaka went into the kitchen, realizing just how little she knew about cooking. She could name ingredients but didn't know the first thing about where to start. She vaguely remembered her mother mentioning yams and fish for ofnsala, but none of it made sense to her now. Frustrated, she opened the fridge, searching for anything that could work. Her eyes landed on a carton of liquid milk, and she thought, why not? Milk is creamy, and it'll be quick. She tossed in some chicken instead of fish, added salt and pepper, and hoped for the best. As Chidi settled at the table, Amaka served him the steaming bowl of her white soup. She watched expectantly as he took his first spoonful, waiting for him to be impressed by her modern twist on tradition. But the moment he tasted it, Chidi's expression changed. He blinked, swallowing with obvious difficulty before looking up at her. Amaka, what is this? He asked, trying to hide his disappointment. Amaka laughed nervously, brushing it off. It's white soup, silly. I just used milk to give it that creamy texture. Chidi's face fell as he tried another spoonful, but it was clear he was struggling to keep from wincing. Amaka, ofnsala isn't made with milk. It has pounded yam and specific spices. This isn't right. Amaka felt a mix of embarrassment and irritation. Why should it matter? It's just food. You should be happy that I tried. Chidi shook his head, visibly frustrated. It's not just food, Amaka. This is about understanding each other's cultures and showing respect for what's important. This soup, it holds meaning for me. Amaka rolled her eyes, brushing off his words as he finally put down the spoon, unable to eat anymore. Later that evening, Chidi called Amaka's parents, explaining the situation to Chief Ozoemena, who listened intently. After a long pause, Chief Ozoemena sighed and admitted that Amaka had never been taught to cook or handle household responsibilities. Perhaps, Chief Ozoemena suggested, it would be best if she came home for a while to learn. She needs to understand that marriage requires effort from both sides. Reluctantly, Chidi agreed. The next morning, he sat Amaka down and explained the decision, telling her he loved her but believed she needed to understand what it meant to be a partner, not just a guest in their home. Amaka felt hurt and angry, but she returned to her parents' house, determined to prove that she was more than capable. Back home, Amaka's mother took her under her wing, teaching her the basics of cooking, cleaning, and household management. She learned the art of pounded yam, the special spices for ofnsala, and the meaning behind each dish. At first, Amaka struggled and felt clumsy, but slowly, she began to understand the satisfaction of creating something with her own hands. She realized that these dishes carried the stories of her people and her culture, and that food was a way of showing love and respect. Meanwhile, Chidi missed Amaka terribly. He had realized that sending her away had been harder on both of them, and he wanted her back. He spoke with her parents and returned to bring her home himself, this time with a promise to guide her in the ways he valued. When Amaka returned to their home, Chidi was patient, showing her how to make his favorite dishes, teaching her about his family's traditions, and encouraging her every step of the way. Their bond grew deeper, and Amaka learned to balance her modern outlook with a newfound respect for the traditions that mattered to Chidi. One evening, Amaka surprised Chidi with a perfect bowl of ofnsala, made with pounded yam, fresh spices, and just the right touch of her own style. Chidi's eyes widened as he tasted it, smiling with pride and love. Their journey had taught Amaka that marriage was about blending two lives and embracing each other's values. Together, they moved forward, stronger and more united, building a new path together that was rich in love, respect, and tradition.